This Committee of Adjustment meeting for the Township of Selwyn for Tuesday, February the 28th, 2023. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. I will now call the meeting to order. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, I will now go to the planner to announce the purpose of the meeting, or to Brandy. Whoop.
Sorry about that.
You inherited Robert's microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Committee of Adjustment is holding a public hearing in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, in order to consider 7 applications for relief from Bylaw 2009-21, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn. The prescribed notices for the public meeting were provided by prepaid first-class mail to all residents within a 60-meter radius of the subject properties. Ministries and agencies were circulated via email. The subject properties were posted with a sign advertising the public hearing. The notices were also available on the township's website. The notice circulation complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. If a specified person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public hearing or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn before the variance is granted, the person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn on the Ontario Land Tribunal, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn on the proposed minor variances, you must make written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn by fax, email, or Dropbox. Our first application that we have for relief is application number A0123 for 28 Edgewater Drive. The application seeks relief to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to approximately 20 meters to an open deck. This is in order to permit the existing as constructed 366 square foot open deck. We have found that this application does meet the 4 tests of the minor variance and recommend it for approval. We also do not recommend that an arc assessment is warranted as the deck is already being constructed. We have received agency comments from the Peterborough Public Health advising that they have no objection to the application. The Otonabee Region Conservation Authority has submitted comments that an ORCA permit will be required as well. We did also receive comments following the preparation of this report from Pine Ridge District School Board, advising that they do not have any issues with this application either. We did not receive any public comments for this application.
All right, thank you very much. I understand that the agent, Peter Robinson, and the owner, Angelo Kukuru, are on the line. Is there anything that either of you wish to add to the report?
You'll just have to unmute your mic, Peter and Angelo.
Yep, this is Angelo here. No comment from my end.
All right, thank you. And is there anything that Peter Robinson would like to add?
No, other than to say we've read the report and we can abide by those conditions.
All right, thank you very much. Deputy Clerk, was there anyone else that had sent in for support of this application?
Madam Chair, we have no one else here for this application for or against.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to A223, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A223 is for the property located at 1106 Long Point Road. The application seeks relief to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 13.82 meters to an open deck. This is in order to permit a new 384 square foot open deck. We have found that this application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance and recommend it for approval. We have found that an arc assessment is warranted for this application should there be any excavation or soil disturbance. Pardon me. We did receive agency comments from Peterborough Public Health advising that they had no concern with the application. As well, the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority has submitted comments that an ORCA permit will be required for the project. Comments were also received from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board following the preparation of this report, as they had no comments or concerns with the application. We did not receive any public comments for this application.
All right, thank you very much. And I understand that in support of this application is the owner, Stephen Johnston. Do you have anything you wish to add?
I don't think so. I missed part of what was said there because something on the site here screwed up. So I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. And Deputy Clerk, is there anyone else in favor or against for this application?
There's no one else here for this application, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We will move on to A0323, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A0323 is for the property located at 25 Lily Lake Road. This application seeks relief to reduce the maximum gross floor area of a home occupation from 25% to 34% of a dwelling, as well to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 30 meters to 22.2 meters to a greenhouse. This is in order to permit a new 864.3 square foot clinic space in the basement of a proposed dwelling and a new 3,023.6 square foot detached greenhouse. We have found that this application does meet the 4 tests of the minor variance and recommended for approval. We also do find that this application does warrant the requirement for an archaeological assessment should there be any soil disturbance or excavation. Agency comments were received from Peterborough Public Health, who submitted comments that an existing septic system review application is required. The Otonabee Conservation Authority has submitted comments of no concern for this project. The Ministry of Transportation has provided comments that an MTO approvals and permits are required prior to issuance of municipal building permits. As well, comments were received following the preparation of this report from Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board, who had no concerns with the application. We did not receive any comments from the public for this application.
All right, thank you very much. I understand that the owner, Robert Horvat, was to be here in person. I don't see him. Is he online by chance, Deputy Clerk? All right, is there anyone else in favor or against this application?
We don't have anyone else here for this application.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions on this application? Seeing none, we'll move on to A423, please. Oh, might be Mr. Horvat.
Brandy, you can just leave your mic on. Okay.
Would you be Mr. Horvat? We just dealt with your application, and if you'd like to wait, we will be approving them all at the end. All right. Sure. Go ahead, Brandy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So our next application on the agenda is A423 for 722 Peterborough Avenue. The application seeks relief to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 3.5 meters to an attached garage, to reduce the setback from the center line of Eden Avenue from 17.5 meters to 7.7 meters to an attached garage, as well to reduce the setback from the center line of Eden Avenue from 17.5 meters to 7.7 meters to an attached garage. This is in order to permit a new 575 square foot dwelling addition with a covered porch and a new 504 square foot detached garage. We have found that this application does meet the 4 tests of the minor variance and recommended for approval. We also do find that this application does warrant the requirement for an archaeological assessment should there be any excavation or soil disturbance. Agency comments were received from Peterborough Public Health, as well as the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority, who did not have any concerns with this application. As well, comments were received from Kawartha Pine Ridge School Board following the preparation of this report, who also did not have any concerns with this application. We did receive public comments from Tricia Can at 1024 Bellevue Avenue, who submitted comments of no concern, as well as Shelby and Joe Sawyer at 720 Eden Avenue, who also submitted comments of no concern for this application.
Thank you. I understand that the agent, Holly Richards Connolly, is on the line in support. Holly, do you have anything you wish to add?
At this time, nothing. We have contacted Peterborough Public Health already and have a letter that they have no issues with the existing septic system. And we have an archaeologist lined up for the springtime already.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else, Deputy Clerk, in favor or against this application?
We have no one else here for this application, Madam Chair.
All right. I have a question. Bring it to committee from Ron Black.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just with regards to the setback from the garage from 7.5 to 3.5 meters. You can't park a car on a driveway in front of a garage with 3.5 meters. That's 10 feet. What happens there? Are they allowed to park in front of that garage, or?
So this particular property has been in consultation with the township for quite some time in order to make this development go forward. It is a particularly, awkward property. We view this as being appropriate. It would be up to the applicant then to determine if there's sufficient distance at 3.5 meters for the size of their car to park in front of the garage. Otherwise, they may have to utilize the interior for their parking purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Holly, did you want to add anything?
Sure. We are working with the township to move the driveway just slightly down from where it currently exists. And the driveway is actually going to sort of be a C-shaped, and there will be no parking on that side of the garage. When you drive in on the new driveway, the parking will be on the property and not to the side of the garage.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other questions for this application? Seeing none, we will move on to A0523, please.
Thank you. Application A0523 for 2451 Hiawatha Lane. The application seeks relief to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 16.6 meters to a dwelling, as well to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 13.9 meters to an open deck. This is in order to permit the conversion of a 3,080.63 square foot existing one-story residential dwelling and a deck to a 3,186.1 square foot two-story residential dwelling, including a new screen porch and a 661.98 square foot open deck. We have found that the application does meet the 4 tests of a minor variance and recommend it for approval. We have found that this application does warrant the requirement for an ARC assessment should there be any soil disturbance or excavation. Agency comments were received from Peterborough Public Health advising that they do require that an existing septic system review application is required. As well, comments were received from the Tonabee Region Conservation Authority, submitting comments that an ORCA permit will be required for this project. We also received comments from Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board following the preparation of this report, advising that they do not have any concerns with the application. Public comments were received from John Turner at 3290 and 3281 Clear Lake Road, who has submitted comments of no concern for the application.
All right, thank you very much. And I understand the agent, Holly Richards-Conley, is on the line. Is there anything you wish to add to this report?
Nothing at this time, just here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Deputy Clerk, was there anyone else in favor or against this application?
We have no one else here for this application.
All right, thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Is there any question? Seeing none, we'll move on to A0623.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Application A0623 is for the property at 1459 Shannon Drive. The application seeks relief to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to approximately 22.9 meters to a dwelling addition over an existing deck, as well to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to approximately 23.7 meters to a deck to permit an open deck addition. This application is in order to permit the construction of a new approximate 168 square foot dwelling addition over an existing deck and a new approximate 161.5 square foot open deck addition. We have found that this application does meet 4 tests of a minor variance and recommend it for approval. We do not find that an archaeological assessment is warranted for this application. is not warranted for this application, to be clear. Agency comments were received from Peterborough Public Health, who advised that an existing septic system review application will be required. The Autonomy Region Conservation Authority submitted comments of no concern for this application. As well, we did receive comments from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board following the preparation of this report, advising that they do not have any concern with the application either. We did not receive any public comments for this application.
All right, thank you very much. And Deputy Clerk, was there anyone in favor or against this application?
We have no one here for this application, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions on this? Seeing none, we'll move on to AO 723, which is the last one.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. AO 723 for the property located at 1104 5th line. The application maximum permitted height from 4 meters to 6.05 meters to midpoint, and being 6.83 meters to the peak of an accessory structure. This is in order to permit a new 1,200 square foot detached garage. We have found that this application does meet the 4 tests of minor variance and recommend it for approval, and have found that an ARC assessment is not warranted for this application. We have received comments from Peterborough Public Health advising that an existing septic system review application is required. As well, the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority has submitted comments of no concern for this project. We also did receive comments from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board following the preparation of this report, advising that they do not have any concerns with the application. And we have not received any public comments for this application.
All right, thank you very much. And I understand that the agent, I've got 3 listed here, Syed Ahmed, Jim Petrie, and Raj Barrow are on the line. Is there anything that any of you wish to add to this report?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Syed Ahmed. No further question at all. Quite happy with the report received from a township. And I appreciate if we can get that application approved today.
All right, thank you very much. And Deputy Clerk, is there anyone else that was in favor or against this application?
We have no one else here for this application, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions on this one? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve the applications that are before us today. Moved by Brian Henry, seconded by Ron Black. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. The minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting, January the 17th, 2023. I need someone to move that. John Boyko and Mary Koulis, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And our next meeting is scheduled for March the 28th. I need a motion to adjourn, please. Mary Koulis and John Boyko, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. You're approved.
Hello, is there still time for me to ask a question? Shit. Can I ask a question, please? Gone, I guess. Shit.
Good afternoon. This Township of Selwyn regular council meeting of Tuesday, February the 28th, 2023 will come to order. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Will you please observe a moment of silence so that council, staff, and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please note it in the minutes. And the minutes of our regular council meeting of February the 14th, 2023. I am looking for a motion to approve them. Moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Is there any discussion out of the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on to our first deputation. And so we are going to be hearing from the Lumex group. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, my name is Mike Donald. I work for the Lumex group. Here today to give a brief overview of, brief introduction, I should say, of community risk assessments for fire department. So back in July 1st of 2019, the provincial government passed a regulation that requires all municipalities in the province to conduct what's called a community risk assessment before July 1st of 2024. Now, these community risk assessments identify and examine community fire risks and hazards. Again, it's specific to fire services. Now, this differs from the hazard identification and risk assessment critical infrastructure that is identified by emergency management in the community. So there is some overlap, or will be some overlap, but it is a different risk assessment. So these risk assessments are tools that help municipalities make decisions about your fire protection services based on your needs and circumstances in the community. And it's hoped that these community risk assessments will be followed on by the fire master plan, which will actually guide you when and how to do things based on the resources that are allocated to them. So these community risk assessments, what we have to do with them is we have to look at 9 community profiles to develop this. You see on the screen. Well, she's working with that all too. So we look at 9 different community profiles. We look at your geography, look at your demographics, the economic profile of the community, look at building stock, critical infrastructure, again, as I mentioned, your community services, what do you have in the community? We'll look at all the public safety response entities that are available to you. We'll just look at past events and the loss history of the community with respect to fire. And then we'll take a general look at all of the hazards within the community. So what we do is we develop an approach and a methodology. And ours looks like this diagram here. So first of all, we develop a team. We put a team together of select members of a Lumex group that have experience managing emergencies and managing fire services. And this team that it's throughout Ontario. Numerous people that we can store it here, so that's close by. Once we select the team, and I'm not the only one working on this, there's many of us. Jump in and help out with certain aspects. For instance, you have water, a lot of water. So we have one of our team members that specializes in water risk, is fire department. So we will bring him in and have him look at risks as opposed to just so then we look at everything. We look at all the legislation that's applicable to a fire department. We look at all kinds of documents that we've already asked chief for, reports, mapping, direct observation of your community, the environment, and then we do some engagement sessions with certain staff members. And we'll look at engagement with the fire chief, the deputy chief, fire prevention officer, and municipal staff. So once all that's done, we put it in a big barrel and shake it up, analyze the data, the information, consider some best practices, and actually develop risk assessment. So what is a risk? So you can read it there, but I'm going to read it anyways. Risk is defined as a measure of the probability and consequence of adverse effect on health, property, organization, environment, or community due to an event, activity, or an operation. So after identifying the fire and life safety risks that are present in this, fire department can then determine which risk to address, and how best to do that. So the fire departments base our decisions on the probability of given risk occurring and its potential impact on the community. So the probability, we'll look at the likelihood of it happening, whether it's rare, has it happened in the last 15 years. Well, if it hasn't happened in the last 15 years, it's pretty rare that it's going to happen. All the way up to almost certain. And that is if we've had multiple events happen within the last year. And then there's 3 others are unlikely, possible, likely. So that's the probability of something happening. So then we'll look at the consequences. So is it insignificant or is it catastrophic? Yeah, minor, moderate, and major between them. Is there no life issue, life safety issue, or is it significant loss of life? And all those steps. I'm not going to read every one of these, but I think you get badly good. Next, please. So once we shake all that out, we put it all into a risk matrix, as you can see, and low risk, moderate risk, or high risk. Then we'll develop this risk assessment based on these risks. So then the last part of this is developing risk treatment plans. These are not fire master plans, these are just risk treatment. So if we come up with something that we think is a risk, we'll give you some ideas on how you can manage that risk. It's not an all-encompassing plan because we're not talking about funding here. We're just saying, here's a way to do it. So a risk treatment plan is developed for each of the identified public fire safety risks, created using evidence-based approach and potential outcomes, consider the potential outcomes of proposed action. So that's basically what a community risk assessment consists of, and what our approach is going to be to work through this. We've already had our first session with the chief, with the deputy, CAO Valley was there as well. So we sat down, here's how we're going to do this. We've already done that with them. Had another team member of ours. We met with chief and deputy last week. Did a tour of your community, looking at it. I've been through this community many times in my life. But I didn't look at it like I did last week. Oh, I really see that. And I'm sure if you look at your community from a different angle, now that you're council, as opposed to when you're a citizen portfolio. So if you look at it differently, bring some different things to the table. Being from outside, you don't have any vested interest. We're just pointing out facts. So that's a community risk assessment that, again, we hope that when receive it in a couple of months' time, you can plan for a master fire. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. I don't want to take up a lot of time because I think somebody's really hungry. Sorry, I just had to do that.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. And it has been a few years since we've updated our fire master plans, so I'm sure it will go hand in glove with what you're talking about right now. Are there any questions? Councillor Koulis.
Can you clarify the temporal part of the risk assessment? Like, is it short or medium term solutions you're providing? You note that there's a historical context that you look at, but for us to move forward, like how, I'm just curious for our planning, the amount of time we're thinking about with the solutions you provide.
Okay, that's kind of a loaded question because we're gonna give you some very specific answer to a risk. We're not going to tell you when to do that. That's going to be up to the fire department. And hopefully a master fire plan, which will guide you and give you some timelines on mitigating or whatever you want to do with this risk. If you want to convert to something else, if you want to actually deal with the risk, whether it's vehicles or fire halls or staff or training, whatever the answer is, that will be up to you to accept that a master fire plan is. This really isn't going to give you timelines. It's just going to identify the risk and here's some ways that you can actually deal with this risk. That answer your question.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. And I need a motion to receive the presentation today. Moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Black. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we have a hungry Michelle Ferrari.
Good afternoon. I was thinking for the people watching at home, they have no idea. They didn't hear us talking before. So just for context, I was complaining to Councillor Henry, who is so good at providing nutritious food that I had yet not been fed yet. So anyway, I digress. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Congratulations, I guess, would be my first order of business to you, Mayor, and to all of you, Council. It's a big feat, and thank you for stepping up to provide service to your community, which also happens to be my community. I'm also a Selwyn resident as well. So thank you for having me. And this is just through coordination. This is just sort of my first official delegation to meet the new council, give you an update on what we're doing federally, just through coordinating schedules through Ottawa. So I'll just go through it pretty quickly. And then if there's any questions or feedback from council, I'd love to welcome them. First thing up on the chopping block, and I've said this to a number of councils, continues to sort of be the number one issue I see across the board. I mean, it's going in tandem, the two things kind of go in tandem, but it's housing and cost of living. So from a Selwyn perspective, you know, I did provide an update for the city of Peterborough. And obviously when we look at CMHC, I think what's good for the city is often good for the county and the municipalities surrounding that. So working to ensure that we're getting a lot of projects approved, but in particular for Selwyn, I just want to point out that I've been very impressed with the work of Abbeyfield and Deputy Mayor and Mayor of what you guys are doing. And I think it's a really valuable tool in solving a lot of the housing crisis. And I think, you know, you have my support on that on a federal level to move forward with Abbeyfield. I think it's a really great project. Tourism file is obviously big for Selwyn as well. So coming April 1st, there is the alcohol tax excise tax, which is 6.3%. This is obviously going to be hurting a lot of our businesses that are looking to recover from the pandemic. So on a federal level, we're pushing to end this in all federal taxes. The CCRF funding. So this was announced. This was a $750,000 grant announced by the Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, FedDev Ontario, and provides funding for projects that aim to revitalize downtown cores and main streets reinvent outdoor spaces, create green infrastructure, and increase the accessibility of community spaces. Selwyn applied for this funding to retrofit the former Lakeville Post Office, which currently houses the Kawartha Chamber of Commerce and Tourism and Police Services, to create an accessible and comfortable upper level community space. Public safety, this continues to be a really big issue as well. So from a federal perspective, we're continuing to press the Liberal government to reform the bail system. This is in accordance with all 13 provincial and territorial premiers' request, as well as police chiefs. Repeat dangerous offenders are a serious risk to public safety, and we're seeking amendments to ensure that those most dangerous offenders stay behind bars. Cost of living, which I touched on at the beginning of this is without a doubt the number one thing I'm hearing from folks. They're just really struggling. What used to be a great combined income, $100,000 used to be really good money. It's just not making the cut for a lot of people. They're struggling to make rent. They're struggling to afford the cost of food, which has increased almost 12%. And so we're seeing a lot of that, especially I hear a lot from the residents of Selwyn, seniors, and I saw this too when I was campaigning. Those on fixed incomes are really struggling. They just don't have what it takes, and a lot of them are isolated too. So I know there's some great programs on community cares and that, but from a federal level, we're really trying to push down the carbon tax and try and get the cost of living and inflation down. The other key one as well is SEBA loans. This came across my desk when I was under the tourism file. I'm now families, children, social development, but the SEBA loans were really critical for especially those in the tourism sector to survive during the pandemic. But most of those small businesses have not made back that money to be able to repay it. So we're seeing a lot of pushback for those most hardest hit. The Chamber of Commerce has a statement on this as well. I was key in pushing for an extension of repayment, but now we're just seeing a lot of businesses, and in particular this region of restaurants, they just don't have the money to repay it. So that's on my radar and listening to a lot of the businesses locally. And then finally, I'll wrap up with connectivity. So that's having good internet, staying connected. It's obviously in the operational phase. We've had the announcement. So now on a federal level, just ensuring that those timelines are met and that members of the community have access to a connection right through a good internet. So that's all I have for an update. If there's any questions or anything I can help with, I'd ask you for your leadership.
Thank you, Michelle. Before I go to council, I just wanted to mention homelessness is certainly an issue to be housed, I think, should be a right and on everyone's radar to try and do everything we can possible to deal with the issue. But I feel there's another issue that's directly affecting the well-being of more and more Canadians, including here in Selwyn. And that is a lack of family doctors. Our healthcare system is on life support, in my opinion. And I want to take this opportunity to applaud the federal government for increasing the amount of funding to the provinces to help to address this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I couldn't agree more. And you're absolutely right. And one of the projects that we spoke about too was 12 Neighbors, sort of innovation when it comes to housing and access to housing, right? Tiny homes, adding on to current lots for in-law suites, coach housing. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that I think we have to look at moving forward. And I think you're absolutely right. And the doctors, absolutely. I hear this often. So thanks for that feedback.
Thank you. And so are there any questions? Deputy Mayor Black, you're going to be easy on her.
There we go. Yeah. Thanks for the presentation, Michelle. It was great to have the update. Just, a couple of things that you've brought forward and our mayor has talked about the right to have a place to live and appreciate the positive comments around the Abbeyfield co-housing model that we're proposing. Talking to food banks in our area too, their volume has increased tremendously. A lot of folks from the city are moving to the Selwyn area for lower cost rental housing typically, as opposed to the city. So it's definitely affecting the township in a bigger way than many people might think. The other area that I have some concerns around are the SEBA, the RRF loans. I'm the chair of the loans committee for Community Futures, and we've just done a review of all the loans that we've provided, which is millions of dollars of loans through that program. And as you said, many of them are restaurants who are still not 100% recovered from COVID, and there is an expectation that at the end of this year, they pay back that $60,000 loan that was provided. So I know we're working with FedDev on trying to look at some different options of approach as opposed to trying to call those loans at the time, which will, I think, hurt a lot of local businesses. So anything we can do at the federal level with FedDev around working with the local community futures groups and the banks, of course, to transition that loan a little better, I think will save a lot of jobs in the community as well.
Thank you for that.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sennis. Thank you, Michelle, for being here today and talking to us. I should have warned you to pack a lunch. Could take a while. Was it an AMO housing and homelessness meeting this morning? And bear with me here, but considering our current needs, and then with the feds committing to 500,000 newcomers coming into Canada over the next couple of years, that's really adding some pressure to the build homes movement or situation that we're in. And then with Bill 23 potentially drastically reducing potential revenues for our municipalities, which will impact a lot of the services that we can support. And then none of this seems to address homelessness and the associated demands on our social services that would go along with that. With the federal government commitment of $46 billion over 10 years for healthcare, and their position to monitor how the province spends it. Can the province or municipalities access funds from those healthcare dollars, specifically to address homelessness and or the associated health services and the impact this is going to have on our municipalities, as the World Health Organization has declared that housing is a right, not a commodity? Is there a way that we can access funds or approach the provincial government to be able to get the dollars that the feds have sent down? Because the feds said they're going to, I think it was announced yesterday that the feds are going to monitor how that money is spent.
Thanks for the question, through your worship. So I don't know that off the top of my head of what that accessibility is going to look like, Councillor Henry. However, I can definitely look into that and get back to you guys. The one thing I would suggest is there is this interconnection, a lot of it when we look at the mental health crisis, which many of you may know. That's sort of why I ran. It's my beacon of what we're trying to help, right? Have access to more resources. The wait times are insane. What we're seeing in terms of overdoses, it's like nothing we've ever seen ever in history. Like 22 people a day are dying across Canada. So to that point, what I would suggest is there is a promised $4.5 billion mental health transfer that was promised by the Liberals in the last election. I've worked alongside Minister Bennett, been pretty vocal about where is that. You know, there's repackaging of money in the federal transfer, but it's not in mental health dollars. Does that mental health, would that mental health money, if they deliver on their promise, tie into helping with that homelessness for those who are the most hardest to house, right? The most vulnerable. You know, would that constitute that when we look at sort of villages that are popping up across the province and the country? I had the chance to visit one in Kingston called Our Livable Solutions. It's a tiny home village. It's as well as 12 neighbors out in Fredericton, which is a really fascinating model, which I put the warden and the mayor of Peterborough in touch with. But again, everything needs an owner operator, right? Everything needs a sort of quarterback to speak in terms of for it to, like, yeah, it's a great idea, and then everybody kind of dissipates, right? But it's very interesting. So long-winded answer to your question, because I don't know that that's where that money is going to help with homelessness per se with that federal transfer, because I think the healthcare is in such stress that I can see them saying, no, we're only going to use it for healthcare, even though the interconnectedness, as you've stated, is definitely there. So I don't know, but I think there's definitely some scathing reports coming out that the CMHC, there has been nothing done to reduce homelessness despite $4.6 billion invested.
All right. Are there any other questions? Councillor Koulis.
My question kind of touches on a number of things that you've noted at the local level, but the decision is going to be at the federal level. And I'm just curious to what extent you and your party are working on it before I jump into it, and what efforts you see going forward. So 1 in 5 children in Canada go to school hungry. And so that touches on and is intrinsically linked to struggles with poverty and housing. I know right now the National School Food Program is being developed under Economic and Development Canada, but it seems like it's one stone for 2 birds here. So I'm curious what you guys are doing on it as the opposition.
Thanks for the question, through you, your worship. Yes, I actually just sat on the health committee and listened from the head of the national, I think it's called the National Breakfast Program. They're putting together a piece right now to ask for this. A lot of this is provincial. A lot of it is not through the federal funding. A lot of it comes through as well through United Way funding, these kinds of things. Back to Deputy Mayor Black's comments of the food bank usage and childhood hunger. We've seen this across the board to say that 1 in 3 people using food bank is children. So it's heartbreaking. I know I don't know what other word to say, but heartbreaking doesn't solve the problem. So I think the reality is that you have to get the cost of living. I could go on and on about this because we did a study in the status of women on the impact of children's mental health. Parents are so stressed and they can't afford to feed themselves. They're compromising their own food. They're not able to co-regulate. Then we have children with mental health issues going to school because the parents are stressed. I mean, the interconnectedness, again, going back to what I said to Councillor Henry, you can't separate these things. However, the funding is often separated for them. They're all connected. So to answer your question in short, I guess what I would say is we're very aware of the problem. We're doing, I guess, what we can in terms of getting the cost of at the base level to the farmer down as well. That's a really big piece of this conversation in terms of helping the cost of food. And what are we doing locally to support and incentivize those who make our food to make it less costly for them and to ensure that kids have access. Should I had a better answer for you.
Follow-up question.
I guess to clarify too is I coordinate a student nutrition program in Edmondson Heights, and I'm a parent of 3. So I can see on the ground what's happening, and it's definitely increasing. I think my question, like for clarification here, is to what extent does your party support a national school food program, especially if you're in favor of not supporting charity-based food programs? Like that's my question, is like, are you going towards that kind of a social service? Because I think as a municipality, we will see the trickle effects in helping with housing and poverty in the long run. So to clarify if you support it or not.
Thank you for the question, through your worship, if I may. So you want funding for a national breakfast program? I can support that. Is that the direct question? I can get you that answer. That's what you'd like, where our party's position is at it. If that would help, and I can bring it back to you or present it back to the council.
Right. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm looking for someone to accept MP Ferrari's presentation today. Councillor Henry and Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Michelle. Always a pleasure to have you here. Deputy Clerk, has there been any questions that have been sent in?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the municipal officer and staff reports. And Tanya, you're going to be talking to us about the Heritage Committee.
Yes, thank you. So back in late 2022, council reviewed our committees, our standing committees and legislative community committees. And at that time, we put the decision in terms of the Municipal Heritage Committee on hold because we were waiting for additional information on Bill 23 and the impacts it would have on the functions and roles of that committee. And since then, we have received some information, and Bill 23 really has two major impacts on the committee and on the work that it does. And it all revolves around the Municipal Heritage List, which is, or otherwise known as the Register, which is a large part of the committee's role. So the list essentially is made up of two non-designated listed properties. So the non-designated listed properties are properties that we see of interest, properties that we may want to consider for designation at a later point. What Bill 23 has done is essentially told municipalities that we can keep non-designated listed properties on the list or on the register, pardon me, for 2 years. And we have the choice to, in that 2-year time frame, designate them, or they are removed from the list. And once they are removed after that 2-year mark, they cannot be added back on for 5 years. So there's a number of impacts in regards to that. But really, in terms of the role of the committee and their duties, because creating that list and identifying properties of interest was a big part of that committee's role. Essentially, that's being taken away for the time being. And our focus really has to turn to looking at our existing 107 properties that are on our non-designated list and prioritize them for designation with the budget constraints that we have. So to have a property designated, we're looking at about $2,000 to $2,500 a property. So it's really for that 107 almost impossible unless Lane can reach into some magic pot and fund it. But it's just virtually impossible to find $250,000 to try to have, and also from a time standpoint, to have these done in 2 years. So it's suggested that the committee's role then be to focus on prioritizing out of that 107, a few properties to focus on, maybe 1 to 2 annually that we can have designated, and reduce and to focus on those properties for designation and saving those from being removed off of the list entirely. So the committee's role will change slightly. They do have other initiatives and things that they do, such as reviewing maintenance plans. So for the 10 properties we currently have designated, should they choose to do any repairs to their property externally, then the committee plays a role in that, as well as just general education and awareness of heritage matters. So it's staff's recommendation that we continue to operate the committee as an advisory committee, and that we consider reducing the amount of time that they meet rather than monthly to quarterly. And if we need to meet for any particular reason, we can certainly call a special meeting to do so. So we're requesting that council consider keeping the committee as advisory, and as well as proceed with advertising for some of the vacancies that we have. We did advertise in late 2022 for committee members. We did receive some applications, but not enough to complete the composition of the committee. So we would need to recruit again and review the applications that we did receive. And lastly, we also need to have a council member appointed to that committee as per the terms of reference. So I'll leave that with council and I can answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. And Councillor Koulis?
Can I appoint or suggest that Councillor Brian Henry is appointed?
You want to nominate Brian Henry to be on that committee? I have a seconder. Deputy Mayor Black. Is there anyone else? No. Okay. Are you willing to accept it?
Through you, Mayor Sanis. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Koulis, or Councillor Koulis, for your recommendation.
All right. Thank you very much. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right. We've got one part of the recommendation. And yeah, is there anything else, Councillor Koulis, that you want to say about that? Okay.
Flashing at me.
Oh dear. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sanis. Thanks for the report. It was good to finally get this one, a better understanding of where we need to go with the Heritage Committee. I think it's a bit counterintuitive to me to reduce the number of meetings at this point when they basically have to look at 107 properties and start doing some prioritizing and looking. And I think there's a lot of work to be done over the next 2 years before they all disappear off that list. So I'm just wondering if they'll be able to do the work only meeting 4 times a year. Heritage properties are important to the community. I just don't know that over 8 meetings, they're going to be able to make all those decisions or make that work. So I don't know if it's every other month or something like that. Maybe monthly is not required. I don't know the work of the committee, but I think it's counterintuitive to me to have all the work to do in the next 2 years and actually have only a third of the number of meetings that they normally have had. So it's just my comment.
Through you, Madam Mayor. It's a good point. And I think that the plan would be that at minimum, they meet 4 times a year. If we need to meet more frequently, then we certainly would. The committee members that are on the committee currently are very well aware of the properties as they research them and added them to the list. So in terms of reviewing that, it will take some time, but they're very familiar with the property. So I don't anticipate that prioritizing them will be a huge task, but it certainly will be. And then the issue lies with once we prioritize them and we decide to pursue designation, there's a lag time there where it's out of our hands because we do need to engage a heritage planner to then go and do the briefs, and they're at a premium and hard to find, especially local ones. And so we could be months before we get a brief back. So I would just hate to commit the committee to a schedule when we may not have anything to review, but it's a very fair point. And I do think that if we are required to meet more frequently, the terms of reference certainly does allow for that. So it would be a quarterly would be our minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Follow. So the properties that are on the 107 that are on the non-designated list, if the committee decides they want to designate them, what's the impact on the owner? Are they forced into that, or do they have to agree to that?
So designation is a very public process. So if the committee does choose properties to designate, and then we do notify the property owner, we work with them. There is public notice, there's a public meeting that goes out.
Okay.
It is ultimately council's decision, but it is heavily involved. We do engage the property owner. We really, our formal council has had the thought that we only designate properties if a property owner is in a position or wants to. That there has been occurrences where that hasn't happened because the community has spoken in value of a specific property, but we do work with the property owners, and we want to have a good working relationship. The former council felt that way, and the former committee as well. So it's a public process and it's engaging with the property owner.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? I have one. Will this committee still consist of having staff support of Tanya and Robert Kelly?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I'm looking for someone to move the balance of the recommendation. Councillor Boyko, Councillor Koulis, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We're moving on to consent items. Is there anything that anyone wants pulled? Well, I would like 5C pulled, please. And it has to do with the 2022 annual report, but not actually what's in it. I have a couple of questions for our chief. First one is, I have mentioned to our staff that we want to have a tour of the fire halls for council. So that is going to be arranged. Just to let you know.
Madam Mayor, would you like it non-snow or snow?
Prefer non-snow, but if possible.
You want to do maybe mid to late April?
I'll leave it to
Yeah,
Angie.
we were actually going to try to incorporate it within the other two tours that we have scheduled for our roads tour and facilities, as well as water and wastewater. So when we're in those communities, we'll make sure we include the fire hall that's close by. So that was kind of the initial thought.
I have a question here from Councillor Henry.
Through you, Mayor Sanis, I guess, I'm not sure if it's a question or more of a statement. I guess it's a question. Can we, when we are working towards understanding this date, maybe not do what we did with the last time we had to organize a date? Because pretty much the email chain that went out was almost into a situation of quorum, and it could set a precedent. So I think we should be cautious of that.
We do actually have those special tours already set. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Point taken. The other question I have is during COVID, the pancake breakfasts, which are really well attended and enjoyed by the community, were canceled. And I'm wondering if we're going to have one this year, and if we are, what the date would be.
All depend on right now our local health unit and you know what happens between now and then. But if it is, it'll be late May again, for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
There's questions and lots of questions.
I'm sure. All right. Thank you very much. And I'm looking for someone to approve the consent items that are before us down to the petitions. Councillor Koulis, Councillor Boyko, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Other new and unfinished business. We have the town hall meeting set for June the 3rd from 10 to 11:30 at the Bridge North Hall. I need someone to move that. Deputy Mayor Black and Councillor Henry, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Our bylaws, 2023-013, the zoning bylaw housekeeping amendment, 2023-014 to amend the tariff of fees. A mover for that, please. Councillor Henry, Councillor Koulis, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Confirming bylaw. Need a mover. Deputy Mayor Black and Councillor Koulis, all in favor. It's carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Boyko and Councillor Henry, all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
No question.